Okay, so we've all been there. We've all seen ads in relation to the things we've spoken about. And when this happens, not only is it creepy, it feels completely invasive. And I'd like to think that when this does happen, it challenges the relationship we have with our technology. But regardless of how many times we see this, we acknowledge how creepy it is, and we move on to the next thing that grabs our attention. It's totally weird that my best friend and I spoke about a Tame Impala concert, to only see sponsored stories about the artist the next day. This phenomenon not only makes it seem like we've sacrificed our rights to privacy in exchange for electronic social engagement, it also leads me to believe that there are systems in play, lurking in the background, similar to how social media algorithms function, subtle, but in plain sight. And I understand that both of these ideas are on opposite spectrums. One painting the idea that there's no such thing as true privacy when in the proximity of a smartphone, and another that states that there is an easy explanation for all of it. So, are our smartphones actually listening to us? Well, in order to figure this out, we first have to figure out how certain things work, such as social algorithms. Well, good thing I've already released a video on this topic, and I suggest that you watch it in order to get an understanding on how platforms like Facebook and Google use algorithms to tailor experiences to their users. The title card for that video should be popping up now. And we also have to understand how microphones are used by applications in smartphones, specifically in reference to how they're toggled on and how they use the information that they're listening to. And finally, we have to understand how information is shared between devices and data collection agencies as well. Stay tuned for the breakdown, as by the time we reach the end of the video, we'll have a clear answer on whether or not our smartphones are listening to us. And please consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell to ensure that you don't miss out on any future deep dives.
Have you ever felt like the ads that you see on your social media feed are specifically targeted to you? It's almost like the app is listening to your conversation. I know it's happened to Katie on Instagram.
Yeah, Charisse, you know, my friend and I were talking about a specific cruise that she went on, and just a few minutes later, an ad for that specific cruise popped up into my Instagram feed. So it made me wonder, if they're not listening, how could that happen?
Whether you have an iPhone or an Android, you've certainly seen notifications like this. And it's at this moment where one of two things occurs. One user will accept microphone access without question as they just want to get into the app. And the other user would decline access, skeptical as to why a social media app would need access to their microphone. But let's go with the former and explore the point of view from the user who clicked accept. So, what exactly happens when an app has access to your microphone? This answer will differ depending on the app, but let's just assume that the app is Facebook, which offers services that use audio. You can record video on Facebook, which provides optional support for recording audio, unless you're going live or are participating in a live audio room, in which both services require audio. You could also send audio messages via Facebook Messenger, which absolutely requires microphone access. Like Facebook, many other social media apps such as Instagram and/or Twitter require the same type of microphone access, as parts of their services would function partially or not at all without them. But let's play devil's advocate a bit and assume that Facebook does randomly access your microphone. Well, we'd have to assume that they do this for all of their users. And let's also keep in mind that about 2.8 billion users access Facebook via a mobile device each month. That's approximately 93 million users per day. Let's also assume that Facebook accesses each user's microphone and records 1 minute of audio each day. This comes out to 26,000 hours of audio to scrub through per day, which translates to approximately 3 years. It goes without saying, but this is extremely impractical, and even with Facebook's 60,000 employees, it's simply not enough manpower to listen to each conversation, find something meaningful to create a targeted ad for, and splice it onto that user's feed. But what if you didn't need people at all? What if Facebook does access your microphone, records audio, and runs it through a server instead? Well, This would function similarly to devices such as the Google Nest and Amazon Alexa, which send streams of audio requests to a server for processing. So, technically, Facebook could access your microphone and stream audio to their servers, but it will require a lot of data processing. Again, 3 years worth of audio per day when recording at 60-second intervals, and Facebook does not have big enough data centers to process that much information. On top of this, they'd have to be able to bypass both Android and iOS security, running the risk of lawsuits and having their apps prohibited from being used on both platforms, which would be extremely detrimental to their business as, again, 2.8 billion users access Facebook via a mobile device each month. So, it's safe to say that your smartphone isn't listening to you, and that your microphone is only being used for services that absolutely require it. This must mean that there's something else in play though, causing the things that you talk about to be seen on your timeline. But what is it exactly?
Mobile security experts at Wandera took 4 phones, 2 identical Samsung Androids and 2 identical iPhones, all with major apps like Facebook open. They kept 2 in silence, the other 2 were played a series of pet food adverts at the same time over 3 days. They didn't record any related advertising and no technical evidence of listening. Just look at the data phones use when voice assistants like Siri and Google are activated. Compare that to the tiny amounts of data used when the apps are idle. Hiding any meaningful transfer of data would be impossible.
It is far too easy to assume that social media companies such as Facebook are listening in on our conversations. And for many with preconceived notions and biases, there's no convincing them that this isn't happening. And if I'm being honest, it makes sense. We all know that social media companies rely heavily on ad revenue, so in order to place relevant ads in front of users, why not listen in on their conversations to get a deeper understanding of their interests? Again, it makes sense, up until you realize that they don't have to listen to anything at all. For lack of a better saying, we've sold our digital souls to the social media giants, and it's through this information that they collect that they know us so well. You ever witness behavior so common from an individual that you're able to make predictions on how they'll behave in certain situations? The idea that you can get to know a person from a distance has never been more true. Well, it's through our everyday interactions that social profiles are built. Not only do you interact with every post on your social media pertaining to Game of Thrones, you've also Googled theories about the show, explored online communities that discuss it regularly, and you've purchased a full DVD collection from Amazon. Think about it. You're likely to talk about your interests with your friends and family and research them online, so it actually makes perfect sense to have a conversation with someone about something and then see it show up as an ad on your timeline. So many of us are ignorant to the fact that these platforms own all of the data they collect on us. Companies like Facebook create profiles for each user and sell them to data collection agencies who then partner with other companies, collecting further information that solidifies our profiles. These completed profiles are then sold back to social media companies who use the information to tailor ads based on a wide array of variables. It's an interconnected network that's virtually inescapable, unless you don't participate at all. If you have a Visa card, no problem. They own the records of where you make your purchases and they have the right to sell that information without releasing the identity of the cardholder. Let's say that Amazon and Visa partner with the same data collection agency. Amazon will buy the purchase records for any given amount of Visa cards and run those card numbers against their system. At this point, if your Visa card is linked to Amazon and is also on the report that they purchased, they now have a record of your purchase history and can now create ads based around that information. You see, virtually inescapable.
The ads that you see, they come through a variety of information that is being accumulated about you over a long period of time. There are rapid advancements in machine learning technologies where we can now predict what you are interested in according to your past searches and your past behavior.
We now live in a world where it's taboo not to be connected. Our smartphones are now extensions of ourselves, and algorithms do little to placate the paranoid. Farming is no longer exclusive to agriculture, as it's become the norm for social giants to harvest our information whilst we plant our seeds on their platforms. If you've made it this far into the video, you would have realized by now that our phones are not listening to us, for what we experience online is the compromise of being part of society. Cost isn't just measured by the value of a dollar, and currency is and will always be subjective. It's unfortunate that the truth is binary in a way that our world is structured so that if you're not connected, you are no longer living. You're not alive unless you're online, and if you're online, you are a product on the shelf of each social media platform. Why bother with your microphone when you'll give them what they need eventually? As long as the algorithms are sophisticated enough to keep us engaged, they'll have more chances to fine-tune their ad practices. But at this point, the question of whether or not smartphones are listening seems to be a lot less important when facing the fact that we willingly sacrifice our digital identity in exchange for social interaction. It's a choice we ignorantly make every day, and I, for one, am not here to pass judgment, as I'm fully invested in our digital society. I embrace it. But there's nothing wrong with wondering every now and again if it's really worth it.